Wuyang has just released. Your feed is probably full of guides on how to master his kit and climb to top 500. This is not one of those guides. Truth be told, I'm not the best person to tell you how to be dominant on Wuyang. Besides the fact that nobody will really know that for a few weeks, I'm no leaderboard topper. But if you're watching this video, chances are you aren't either. So this guide won't be about the right way to play Wuyang, or even the best way. It won't even cover his different abilities and what they do. Instead, I'm going to show you how to develop your own sense of feel on a new hero. And by the end of this video, you'll have a list of questions to ask yourself anytime you pick up a new character to help speed up the learning curve and take your gameplay to new heights. I took the Wuyang trial weekend to develop my own sense of feel for him and documented my journey. Hey. Hello, it's me, obviously, and I am about to embark on a fun little weekend project. The first thing I did was hop into the practice range and play around with his kit. This naturally raised some questions for me, so I went testing. Now, a lot of the testing I did was proved moot by the new feature showing specific hero stats in-game, but when learning a new hero, following your own curiosity is rarely a waste of time. I tested a bevy of things related to his primary fire damage. I tested how much higher he jumps during rushing torrent, how long someone must be out of his line of sight before his healing breaks, the range of his abilities, and his perks. Then all that was left was to hit the cues. Now we just start to play. Okay. So the first thing that I wanted to really ask myself is, what are my resources? What I was trying to say before being so rudely interrupted by the screen I would become quite familiar with over the course of the weekend was the first question on our new hero feel checklist. What are my resources and how can I use them? This is the foundational question to ask when picking up a new hero. For example, Wuyang's Guardian Wave can be used to knock back enemies and apply healing boost to allies, but it's the only way he can heal himself if he gets in trouble. With that question in mind, it was time to play my first game. King's Row? No! Tragic. And that was pretty indicative of how the rest of the game would go for me. Oh, okay. I've got no idea what I'm doing here. I shouldn't be here. I shouldn't be here. Yeah. I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm gone. I did not help my team even a little bit. Well, this might be a little bit longer of a process than I thought. I really don't think I did anything to help my team. Really at any point during this. So, we go again. We go again. But after a few games, I started to get more comfortable and figure some things out. I think I just figured out what this guy does. Other than get shit on by Genjis. Cassidy's freaking one. Got him. That was so satisfying.
We win these.
I think that's obvious.
GG's.
And from there, the aha moments kept coming. It'll hit the ground wherever your crosshair is. It'll make impact at your crosshair as long as it's not already past the target. That's the key. And a little later that night, I had my crystallizing moment. Okay, hear me out. The attack angle. Let's go. The attack angle, baby. That was the moment I began to understand Wuyang's weapon and how I could make it work for me. Because it creates a steeper attack angle when you have to make adjustments. And that's going to give you a better chance than just like them intersecting with a straight line. Now, if you're just like, you know, ripping through chokes, that's different. But attack angle, attack angle, attack angle. That was the concept that made it click for me. And from then on out, I started having greater consistency and better results. Coach is gone. It's on me to get the ferret. Let's go! We take these. We take these. Now, I know what you're probably thinking. All this talk about making impact at your crosshair and attack angles isn't helpful to anyone watching. It's practically gibberish. Well, good point. Let me try to explain. When I said, it'll make impact at your crosshair as long as it's not already past the target, that's the key. This is what I meant. So without getting into all of the, I'm sure, insanely complex coded physics that this thing does, just think that it wants to get to your crosshair. Now look, if you send it way over there, and then you put your crosshair at your feet, it's not going to do that. it's going to slam itself into the ground as quickly as it can so that it's as close to your crosshair as it can be. But if I start this orb up here, and then I just put my crosshair on the diva, what do you think is going to happen? Smack right into her. And it's going to do that every time. Now, this might be a little extreme, but it wasn't. That's the crux of it. The orb wants to intersect with the environment wherever your crosshair does. Now, the orb has two constants. It moves at a steady pace once charged, and it cannot curve more sharply than the radius of a circle. As long as those two conditions don't make it impossible, the orb will make impact wherever your crosshair is pointed. That realization was helpful for understanding how the orb works, but because of those two constants, treating Wuyang's weapon as a true tracking weapon wasn't working in-game. What really made it click for me was co-opting, and misusing, a term I know from baseball. Attack angle, attack angle, attack angle. Now this next section is more theoretical than anything. A conversation more at home in a classroom than an Overwatch server. So let's head there. What I'm calling attack angle refers to the path of your orb relative to the path of your target. The more those two paths overlap, the better chance you'll hit the shot. This example is great if the enemy is kind enough to walk in a straight line at your orb, but that's not super common in real games. Next, I'm going to show you 3 different shots with progressively flatter attack angles. And I'll highlight the size of the overlapping areas to illustrate the relationship between attack angle and contact probability. With this concept in mind, I leaned into a style of firing that consists of 2 parts, the initial trajectory and the adjustment. This 2-part firing strategy has a couple of main benefits. First, it allows for higher APM by encouraging you to fire first and find a target later. The idea is you can fire an orb anytime you're not actively doing something else and adjust as necessary after the fact. This leads to more total projectiles fired and, at least in theory, more pressure applied to the enemy. Second, it helps create an ideal attack angle by making a single, large adjustment to match the plane the enemy is moving on. Here's an example of both those concepts in action. As soon as I finish actively healing, I fire an initial trajectory over the RV, knowing I can send it toward cart if nothing else. Instead, I see an enemy Genji and adjust toward him. As soon as it hits, I fire another, but this time the Genji moves. I make a single adjustment along the same plane as his movement to secure the kill. Honestly, get wrecked a little bit. With that, I had answered the second question on our checklist. What are words or phrases that help the weapons and abilities make intuitive sense to your body? Those cues will be different for everyone. If attack angle works for you, great. If not, leave it at the door and find one that does. By this point in the trial weekend, there wasn't much time left to work through the rest of the checklist, so we'll go for a lightning round. Remember when I said, I just figured out what this guy does? I was answering the next question on our checklist. What does this hero do well? More specifically, what does this hero do better than other heroes in the same role? In the case of Wuyang, I believed it to be angle control. This Genji had been giving my team problems all game, coming from advantageous angles like this room up here. But by simply putting pressure on that space, the Genji was forced to relocate and engage from a less valuable angle. From that point on, I used Wuyang's primary fire as a way to contest space the enemy wanted to engage from. Since he has a large projectile with splash damage and the ability to curve around corners, he excels in that area compared to other supports like Ana or Baptiste. Additionally, his ability to control projectiles around cover invites us to think of valuable attack angles throughout 3D space in a way no hero has before. Next, we must ask the inverse question. What does this hero struggle with? When I'm playing him, the answer appeared to be staying alive. More specifically, he was vulnerable to enemies getting in close. Since his damage is reduced at close range, heroes like Genji, Tracer, and Venture gave me real trouble. I learned over time, by dying a bunch, that the trick was to rotate away from the enemy before they can get in close. Once they're in my face, his rushing torrent just wasn't enough to live against competent DPS. Rounding out our checklist are the matchup questions. Which heroes do you have good matchups against? Which heroes do you struggle against? And the same questions can be asked of allies. Who does this hero pair well with? And who does this hero struggle to play with? These questions tend to take longer to answer than just a few days, but my initial reactions are as follows. I felt my matchups were good against anyone large, slow-moving, and far away. The bad matchups, we've already covered. I enjoyed playing with allies that restricted enemy movement like Ramatra or Mei, and Hanzo's Sonic Arrow led to some pretty great shots too. In general, I struggled to support my team anytime they wanted to press W into the enemy, since my main goal was to avoid close-range combat whenever possible. There you have it, a checklist to use anytime you pick up a new hero in Overwatch. The key here is that feel is something you have to develop for yourself. Guides are helpful, and content from high-level players can be great resources, but doing what a top 500 streamer told you to do will only take you so far. At the end of the day, it's you playing, and you'll never reach your ceiling if you don't develop an internal sense of the hero you're learning. A few important notes at the end. First and foremost, feel is something that will continue to strengthen over time. There's a decent chance that if I rewatch this video in a month, I'll cringe at how clueless I was. The key is to take everything as a learning experience. Wins and losses, deaths and elims are all data points. Never stop learning. And remember, you'll never learn anything if the lesson you take away from a death or a loss is, my team let me down. Now hit the cues and, like my boy Wuyang says,
just go with the flow.
If you've made it this far, thanks for watching. Due to the time constraints of this project, the video is much less thorough than what I've made previously. There's tons of stuff I wasn't able to include, so if you'd be interested in a fully fleshed out guide, let me know in the comments. Obviously.